Welcome to Straight from the Muzzle, folks, where we are anything but straight. My name is Space,
And I'm Bean.
and I welcome you guys to our show.
What?
It's just because I went from that to like the intro. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, it's what we're supposed to do, but. Anyways, today's show is our Halloween extravaganza.
Yes.
Spooky stories and all sorts of fun stuff. So we did send out, or at least I did a little advert of asking you guys to send us your spooky stories, and everyone sent us their spooky stories. We got quite a few emails this time around. Thank goodness. Thank you
Yes, thank you.
for listening. So, we're glad to get that. So we'll be reading some of those today, and we'll also be sharing some of our own spooky stories. And then, of course, if you have a spooky story that you want to tell us, you can more than likely just, no, I didn't like how I said that. You can just email us spooky stories and we'll add it to one of our episodes, or I'll make a mini episode out of it.
Yes.
So, I guess we could just get into it.
Why not?
Yeah, why not? We got a few. Where do we want to start? Do we want to start from the bottom or from the top? Well,
Let's
we don't want to
start
start from the
from
bottom. Yeah. So, am I reading this one? I guess I'm reading this one.
Yeah, you can read the first one.
Okay, so the first one comes to us from Jeremy Zeiler, or Zayler, or Zeeler. I don't know, it could be one of those. Anyways, it says, "Hello, Ceres the Horse here. I have a story that happened when I was working in the home that I had just bought. So this story happened about 12 years ago. I had just purchased my first home, and I needed some work. It was an old house, originally a log cabin near the Civil War era. And so that's creepy.
Red
as
flag
it is.
number 1.
Yeah, right there. I hadn't moved in yet, and I was doing some painting upstairs in the hallway. I was laying on the floor and painting alongside the baseboards when I hear footsteps coming up the stairs. I couldn't see down the stairs from the position I was in, but I was expecting my dad to come over, so naturally I assumed it was him. So I jokingly called out something like, "About time you get here," and no response. So I waited to see if anyone would come up, and again, nothing. I got up, walked over to the stairs, nobody is there. I looked outside, my dad's car isn't even in the driveway. To this day, I'm still convinced I heard a ghost in my house.
God. I mean, in war times, there are laws where soldiers can, like, come into your house and stay there, and you can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
So, like,
It could be like a ghost from that time period, but anytime I hear like stories that like involve like the Revolutionary, era or Civil War era, it just like there's just no. Especially like in Georgia when they have like the giant, like huge French doors, those kinds of houses, and they've got like those estates that are just ginormous. But there's always ghost stories that happen in those places.
Definitely, yeah.
Effed up ones, at least.
Oh, jeez. Okay, so our next story comes
You're not going to share your own spooky story?
Oh, you want me to share one?
Yeah.
I don't...
I mean, I've got one, but you can go.
Sure, I got one. And this one isn't like, ghost story. Ooh, this is more like legitimately like suspicious. So my buddy Curitos and I go randonauting back when the app was working, which is basically an app that sends you to a location, a random point of location in your area that either has low quantum energy or high quantum energy. And you're supposed to go check it out and see what's there. And one time, and you have an intention. So you're supposed to think of an intention, and then it's supposed to send you to a place that has to do with that.
But you're not supposed to say it out loud, right? So
no, you're not supposed to say it out loud. You're not supposed to type it. It's supposed to be thought specific. And so the intention we agreed upon was suspicious. And then it sent us to a point, and we started driving to it. And it took us to this kind of rural area where there's some houses, some scattered neighborhoods. And the road it wanted us to turn on was like a gravel road. And there was no mailbox or anything. So we're like, okay. So we turn onto this gravel road and we go down a little bit. And then we see on the left is just like a pile of ash, like a house had burned down. It was like obviously some kind of building that had previously burned down. And on the right, there was another little gravel road with a truck sitting there. And it looked like there's a person in it, but we couldn't tell. And we were like, should we turn around? And we're like, no, let's just keep going. Let's see how far it'll go. And the gravel road is like a one-way. And on either side, it kind of started to drop off into like a ditch of kudzu. And we were like, well, it's kind of too late to turn around at this point, so let's just keep going to see if we can find a place to eventually turn around. And we got probably a couple, I would say a couple blocks away from where the point was before we hit a gate that had like 3 different cameras. And like 4 different signs that said like no trespassing, do not come here, don't, cameras, this, that, and the other. So this was like an unmarked property. There's no mailbox, there's no address to it. The point that it led us to on Google Maps was it was just in the middle of this field kind of thing. And so we were like, what is this? And we couldn't go past because there was a sensor. We could see a sensor past the gate. It was open, but if we drove through it, just somebody would have been alerted or something or another. So we made like we stopped right before the gate and we were like, and we did like a 12-point turn because the road was so thin to get out. And when we started coming back out, when we passed by that truck, there was a guy standing outside of the truck, like watching us as we pulled out, like he was making sure we didn't go past the gate.
Weird.
Yeah, and we were like, ugh. And when we got back home later that day, we went on Google Maps and went to the point and started zooming in on it. And the only thing we saw back there was that Google Maps had taken a picture of was a few cars and like a shack. And the exact point it was wanting us to go to was the shack. And we're like, what's suspicious back there? It's kind of spooky.
So did you end up figuring out what it was on Google?
No, we couldn't figure it out. The address was labeled as a business. And when we looked up the business name, like the owner and everything, there was only 1 review and it was 1 star. And we couldn't even tell what they did. Like maybe a handyman or something. Like it was, I don't know. I think it's a cover up for selling drugs or something, honestly.
Didn't you go to like one that was like a government facility?
We did. I'll tell that as a second spooky story.
Because that one's a weird one too.
That was a really weird one.
God. What was your intention?
Our intention was suspicious.
Oh.
Yeah.
Don't get suspicious. Don't get suspicious. Don't get suspicious. That's from Parks and Rec.
It is.
It's such a good little bit. All right. What's our next story?
Our next story comes from Ashley. And Ashley writes, sometimes my mom wakes up and sees people standing next to her bed watching her. One time, our fridge opened and closed itself while we were all home in the middle of the afternoon. We thought it was my dad, but he was in the shower. I've disturbed plastic bags rustling in my grandmother's house. But this is the big one. I was staying over at a friend's house in high school. It's getting late, so we decided to go to sleep after the movie is over. So the movie ends, and he gets up to get in bed, and I start to get up to take the DVD out. But something pushes me back down. My friend is on the other side of the room, and I was more than halfway to being stood up. My balance wasn't shaky. Then I start shivering really bad. Now we were in the basement, but neither of us had been cold all night. He said I could take a shower if I wanted, but I said I'd be okay, I just needed some covers. I'm curious and terrified to know what would have happened if I had taken that shower. So I get changed and get in bed, and I'm about to go to sleep when I hear something on the far side of the basement. My friend tells me it's the ghost of his hamster. He hears it sometimes since it's died. It sounds like scratching on the concrete wall. I try to ignore it. Then I hear it again, still far from us, but closer. Then again, closer, in the doorway to the room where we were watching movies. Then again, in the doorway to the room we're in. It's pitch black, and there's no animals in the house. With it this close, I could tell it's way up higher on the wall than a hamster would be, maybe 3 feet off the ground. And it's on the surface of the concrete, not behind or inside of it. It scratches the wall next to the dresser. It scratches near the foot of the bed. It scratches right next to me, at face level. Then it stops. My friend reaches over and pokes my face and scoots up close to me. I never heard the scratching again that night, but several months later, long after my friend had moved out of the state, I heard scratching on my own wall in my own house, about 3 feet off the floor, on the surface, right next to where my face would have been if I wasn't in a bunk bed. There were no cats in the room with me.
I hate basements. Just like in general, I don't like going into them.
They musky.
Well, there's just like I don't know. Like,
You
I don't
can't
get
trust
it.
a basement. Let's be
You
real.
really, like, true. You really can't. But like in every spooky story, the basement is always the bad news area. Like I don't know any spooky story that would say that a basement is a good place to be. So there's like a good place to be is in the house, but it's no bueno in the basement and no bueno in the attic, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, no. I kind of wonder what it is. I want to know what it is. I wonder if it was just like a spirit. Basements are freaky, as I already told you. But
Basements are weird.
well, okay, so I guess my turn. We had this friend. Oh my god, I just realized that he was in my dream recently. That is creepy. Another story later on. So we go over to our friend's house. It's up in Salt Lake City, and the closer you get to Salt Lake City, the smaller houses get, and the houses are really old. They're like hundreds of years old. So, one of his houses was kind of like one of those old houses. It's like kind of brick cement lined. There's not much to it. Like you go in the house and it's wooden floors, but the floors kind of creak or stoop down a bit. And so it's just kind of like an old house. But they had like this basement. And if you go into the house, you go in, and on the right side is the big room. Left side is kind of like a little side room. And then you go past the kitchen, which is like in the living room essentially, but it's really tiny. Like you have to like shift over to the left and there's a sink, shift over to the right and there's like a little bit of the counter. So there's not much room. You go past that, another bedroom, and then past that is the door and then the basement that goes down. So you go down the basement, and the basement's got really shoddy stairs, but it's not like big stairs. They're very tight. So you kind of like walk down a little bit, shimmy down the stairs. And there's this long hallway into like this dark room, and his husband's down there, and he always is like playing games, and they're like super IT like dudes, so they're either always home or they're always doing something, but he's always like playing a game, so he's always in the dark over there. And there's 3 rooms essentially in the basement. The first room that you come across, no one goes into. I asked about it and they said they would rather not talk about it, so I never brought it up again. Second room is kind of like a storage room, but it's still kind of like weird. They keep the door closed. They say you can go in there, but always keep the door closed. So I'm just like, okay, whatever. The third room is kind of like the living room almost, but at the bottom there's a lot of like room around. Really big, like huge. I like to call it like a king bed almost, like you would find in a castle. Yeah. Huge and fluffy and all that stuff. But I always felt weird when we stayed down there. I always felt like something was watching me, like from the corner. And so I never said anything, but then my really close friend Rue also mentioned it one day. He's like, do you ever feel like something's watching? And I'm like, yes, all the time. And I pointed and I'm like, in that corner specific. And he's like, I just knew it was watching us. I didn't know you could actually point. I'm like, yeah, no, it's in that corner and it's definitely a dude, but I can't tell what his intention is, but he doesn't move. He just stands there, stares at you.
Ugh.
So here's the thing. So like, if I'm in a room and I truly can be like, whatever, I can sense that there's something in the room and I could probably pinpoint where it is in the room. I would rather not because then it draws attention and I don't want that attention. Yeah. But I could probably figure out that there's a spirit in your room.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things. I also have something called a following capability. Spirits can follow you. I don't like that. I wish I didn't have it, but I do. So it's down there and whatever. So like we both knew that there was something freaky down there, and at night you just didn't feel good. Like nothing in that room could make you feel happy. So one day I go upstairs and I'm like, hey, Tugs, is there like something down in that bedroom? And I noticed that you guys have like a bunch of like hanging ornaments in the house, but what is up with that basement? He's like, oh yeah, someone died down there. And I'm like, oh, so you now just failed to tell me this? And he's like, yeah, but we got a blessing, and so it's kind of stuck in a particular area of the room, so it can't touch you or anything. And I'm like, I'm never going back down there again. I never went back down to that room because I knew that there was something in there. But they always have like these like ornaments, one that kind of looks like a painted eye. And they said that like this house has had some history and some bad stuff, really bad stuff happened. That's why we don't go into that first room. And I'm like, I'm never coming back to your house.
Stay there, huh?
Yeah, but you let guests stay there. So like I After that, never went back to that house. I refused because it was just, there's something not right about it. You didn't really feel good about it going into it, but going further down, you just feel like something wasn't right. And the fact that I know that there was a ghost in there or some sort of being that's stuck, like just because it's been blessed to be stuck in there, I don't want it. I don't want anything to do with it. So I have never gone back to that house, but I feel like something has always followed me around since then, and I don't really know how to get rid of it. So it's not a bad one. I just always feel like something is following me and something is watching me.
Yeah, like something's up.
Yeah. Even to this day, I think in my own, like in our own house, like I'll look up in the corner of the room and I'll be like, I know you're there, but you're not allowed to touch me. Like, and I'll say it out loud too, because I know it's there. But I don't know what it is. It's weird. I took something that it didn't want to be taken, and it followed me. Anyways, back to emails.
So our next email is from Glitch the Fox, and he's actually in our Telegram chat, and he's pretty active in there and a really good artist, so that's really cool. Thanks for emailing in. So, Glitch says, Bonjour from Glitchy Boy. I've had my fair share of freaky experiences, from hearing crashing and dropping sounds in a room which should have had no one inside, and was locked with one entrance, to waking up thinking a parent was in the kitchen, only to see a cabinet close itself back up, while my parents' bedroom was locked closed. These all happened as a kid. However, my most recent experience happened in the middle of a trip, visiting my brother in Costa Rica. We had stayed for a while at a house that they were planning on moving out of, their main reason being the house was too small for 2 kids and 2 adults. But my mom and me would later figure out a different reason for them moving. On our 3rd night there, while we were having a small party, I looked into my brother's room and saw some white puffs floating around. I usually try to be skeptical so I don't scare myself, but I just didn't understand how puffs could appear in a windowless room, and how they looked so white when the room was almost pitch black. So of course, I asked my older brother, and he just told me it was my eyes playing tricks on me. So I left it at that. But what never left me was the weird feeling of being watched from outside our guest bedroom. The fact that the door was never closed never helped either, since the bag they had hanging on one hanger made my brain visualize the face of a boy staring at me from the crack that wasn't fully closed. The final night we were there, the one night I laid on the door until my weight managed to close it. Much didn't happen during the trip, but when we left for the airport, I told my mom about the puffs I saw. And not long after, my brother called to see if we were all right. My mom talked to him in a joking tone about having seen the orbs, but my brother went serious. He told us that the orbs were something he often saw, but avoided telling me to keep from scaring us during our stay there. He'd never seen them do anything, but they were there every now and then. The big thing which really shocked me and my mom, however, was my brother telling me about what happened out of the guest room on the night we were there. Apparently, when he had woken up around 2 a.m., he had gotten up to go to the bathroom, and he said he swore he saw a shadow man just walk by the door, stand there, and then phase itself through the door that I had locked. Yet, he did nothing. Maybe he thought it was just his eyes, and he didn't want to wake us up because of his imagination. But I found it terrifying that when I closed the door and felt safe, nothing would peek through, something still got in. So far, nothing's happened there as of yet. God, the feeling of being watched in a room that you feel is empty is always really creepy.
Yeah. And I was telling this to Bean, like, before we started recording, it always seems so really interesting that, like, in America, you were saying it's newer. Like, we're a newer country. But if you go to, like, if you hear stories from, like, South America or Mexico or, Europe, they get really indistinctively creepy and, like, super, super spooky. And that's because the culture there is so deep rooted. And so I always feel like when you go and you hear stories of, like, things that have happened in, Costa Rica or the Bahamas or, what's the other one? Jamaica. Like, there are witch doctors there. There are, like, these deep-rooted supernatural things that happen. And those are the stories that really get me. Because they're creepy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like America is such a new country, and it's a baby country, honestly. But there are so many different ghost stories and horror and just And cryptids even. I mean, think about cryptids. That's a part of like horror culture.
It's a cryptid.
A cryptid is stuff like Bigfoot, Nessie, Mothman.
Oh, I love Bigfoot.
You know,
I
the thing
think
about big feet.
Not a big dick. I don't. I think Bigfoot's real, but I don't necessarily
Big feet.
like big feet. Did I say big
You
feet?
said big feet.
Big feet's real.
Big feet's real.
He's a basketball player. No. He could be.
Good.
What if Bigfoot is real, but he's just like shaves down to like human form and then just like has like a regular like life, and then like every once in a while he's just like, let's go scare the people. Like,
The
grows
Rock
his hair out.
Johnson.
Yes! It's doing the Rock.
I don't know,
Oh my
man.
God.
I've never seen The Rock and Bigfoot in the same room, so.
Shoot. It could be. It could be. Let's see. I guess I could share another scary story that I have. You don't have scary stories. You just have weird stories.
Yeah, I don't have like scary ghost stories, but I have some pretty weird ones. But you go ahead. It's your turn anyway.
Okay, so well, it's technically your turn, but
Is it? Oh, well, I have another. So the scary story I have kind of pertains to Glitch's story about like, you know, feeling weird in like a specific room. Like someone's watching you. So my fiance and I were spending the night at her aunt's house because we had gone up there to spend, you know, the day on the lake and just spend some family time for the 4th of July. But when we got back to the house, we were originally going to sleep on the couch, but she ended up getting a bed set up for us in the guest bedroom upstairs, which is usually empty. But because they had just gotten a bed up there, we were like, yeah, sure, it's better than a couch. So we went upstairs, and it's like it was previously empty, so no furniture except a bed against the wall, and a window across from the bed. And there was a door to what we assumed was a closet. And so we were in this room, and we're laying there, and it's dark, and I was like, you feel kind of weird? And I was like, yeah, this does feel really weird. And the room, it was so echoey and cold. Like, we were shivering, and we couldn't tell, because the rest of the house wasn't cold. It was just this room. And we were like,
fine. Red flag.
yeah, and we were like, God, it's so cold in here. Like, it's so echoey. It just feels weird being in an empty room. Like, why did they keep this room empty? I don't understand. And we were laying there trying to sleep, but still feeling, both of us were just feeling really off. And we started hearing scratching coming from the closet door. And we were like, what the fuck is that? And I was like, I don't know. Like, what should we do? And it was like the door was shaking, like something was scratching at it. And we were like, what do we do? And so we turn on the light, and the scratching's still going on. And I walk over to the door, and I put my hand on the knob, and the scratching stops. And I was like, should I open it? And I was like, and Casey was like, and I was like, I'm just going to open it. And I open the door, and it's not a closet. It's a whole nother room.
What?
It is a whole nother room full of stuff. And we were looking around like, what the hell? And then a cat ran out of the room. It was a cat scratching on the door.
It's screaming.
Oh my God, it scared the shit out of us. And her aunt ended up coming upstairs, and she was like, oh, sorry, sometimes he goes in there. We must have accidentally locked him in. And we were like, scare the shit out of us. We thought it was like, I don't know, a person or a ghost.
Animals are the freakiest, though.
God.
Yeah, you could have meowed or something, you know? Like, show me a sense of life.
God, it was legit pretty spooky.
Okay, so our next email comes from, I believe it's Asher from our Telegram group.
Yeah.
So this is what they have to say. So, that's literally what it says. So, I don't know how spooky this really qualifies as, but I have been in many super sketchy WTF, you know, am I out in the middle of the desert 2 miles from anything kind of situations at 1 o'clock in the morning. I think we've all had those. I used to live in a cabin where there were 12 of us that stayed in a single room. God.
Jesus.
Hopefully it was a big one. Cooking, showers, separate cabin. But there were those times where the propane heater would just completely shut itself off in the middle of the night. It's fuck this weather kind of like outside. And when I got to the point that we really needed to turn it back on, one of us would just go up and do so. The two things that were really odd were, though, first, the shutoff valve would be turned about a quarter of the way, just enough to kill the flow. And two, it would subsequently take 10 to 20 minutes to get the pilot light to stay on. Just saying, we all kind of mildly got, I don't know what sussed is. What is that?
Suspicious? Like you feel suspicious. It's slang.
So they got mildly suspicious. That and the story of my boss and the growling thing, that was scarier than a horror movie. What the hell? Like, you're not going to tell us about that?
Yeah, like, they're just like, yeah, and then this other cool story that I'm not going to tell you.
God, I don't know. Cabins have the creepiest things. Except for the cabin that we stayed at in Yellowstone. That thing was badass.
Yeah, that was nice.
It was more like a hotel room, and then someone made it look like a cabin on the outside.
Yeah.
That was a bit of a short story, so I was just going to go ahead and kind of just tag on another one, and this one comes from Astro. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, that's fine.
Cool. So it says, hey, I'm Astro. I do have a story, but it's probably not as scary being retold as it was in the moment. Anyways, last Halloween, me and my boyfriend were marathoning all the Saw and Halloween movies. When we finished the Saw movies, we skipped to the last 5 because we agreed we absolutely didn't care. Truly, totally a thing. We immediately put on Halloween, but it wouldn't work for some reason. We paid like $40 for the Halloween movies, and I wanted to watch some gross shit. I love it. Since we're both widow babies when it comes to actual horror movie, like, we don't have to watch it on Halloween. We can just watch it tomorrow. So that's what they did, and we went to bed. I got up at like 4 in the morning because staying home and eating junk food all day did not go over well with my digestive system. I noticed the TV is on and we didn't turn it off last night, so I go to turn it off. But then our power goes out for some godforsaken reason. I'm like, fuck it. We'll deal with it in the morning. I'm going to sleep. But when he wakes up, and that's the boyfriend, he goes to turn off the TV. And I'm like, dude, what? The power left us. Now come back to me and join me in my sweet pillowy paradise. It sounds like something I would say.
Yeah.
But I actually hear the sound of the TV turning off, and now I'm hella confused. The TV still turns off, even though there's no power left. Now, I would draw this out and make you think that there's something supernatural going on, but no, the outlet's power was just wired to the neighbor for some reason. In the moment, we were like, gasp, the spirit of Halloween has haunted our television, you know?
Yeah.
And we were all spooked until and this is like in parentheses, a wire repairman, electrician, or the dude who came and gave us our power back. We told him the story, and he checked the wirings while he was there at the low add-on cost of $7 billion. I don't know quite. What is this? I don't quite know how this ends. So bye. That's about it. They're so expensive though, electricians. But seriously, that's kind of weird. It's like a full-on like Ring moment almost. You know, you go to turn the TV off, but no, because that's a whole different story. I've never actually seen The Ring.
That's a good movie.
Well, then you're gonna die. We haven't died, obviously, so it's not real.
God, I love horror.
Man,
movies.
I am partial to horror movies. I like a horror and action movie, but I don't want it to scare me. Like, I don't want to go home thinking, oh my god, I can't sleep.
Oh my gosh.
Like, okay, we once, friends and I, we went and watched Paranormal Activity.
Oh, I remember that movie. God.
That stuff is freaky as shit. So we watched it. Okay, I'm LDS or Mormon. You may look it up. You may know what it is. There's a couple of people in Utah that actually listen to our show, so they'll know what it is. So imagine just like a bunch of us Mormons getting together, and we're kind of like, let's watch Paranormal Activity. It's rated R. Ooh. So we watch it, of course, again, in the basement. I don't know why. And so we ended the first movie, and I'm just like, oh god, that's just so creepy. I feel weird. It's like 1 o'clock in the morning, and then a friend of us was like, let's watch the second one. And I'm like, I don't know if that's a good idea. And so we watched the second one. And I was just like freaked out at that point. So like after the second movie, it's like 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'm like, I should go home. I have to work tomorrow. So we go home, and a friend of mine drops me off. But before we drop off, we get burritos at like one of those 24-hour Mexican food places, which definitely probably was the best decision. I can guarantee you I did not sleep the rest of the night.
Aww.
To this day, I can't sleep if there is any sort of door that's open in the house. I don't care if it's a cupboard. I don't care if it's a drawer. All the doors must be closed. And I can't sleep with an open door open. It's just, there's something about it. So I'm freaked out about like doors and like noises at night.
I remember watching Paranormal Activity when it came out when I was in middle school. Like, did you watch it when it came out?
No.
It was later?
Freaky. Because like, yeah, it was like a couple years later because it hit like it was like a really scary movie at the time, wasn't it? Like it
at
got
the time,
pretty
yeah.
good reviews, yeah. And now they got like, I don't know, there's like what? How many different Paranormal Activity movies? They've just gotten worse and worse and worse over time. That's what happens. You keep trying to make one after the next. It doesn't work. Not with spooky stories, at least. Okay, so a spooky story of my own. Let's see.
So our next email is from Jacob. They go by Wander. They say, "Hey there, Wander here. This happened a couple of months ago, so mid-August. I was having a campfire in the backyard because I hadn't had a chance to play with fire much this year, and it had gotten late. So I started to stir the coals to get things to cool down before I went inside. As I was stirring, I noticed something out of the corner of my eye. I turned to look and saw nothing, so I figured my brain was just on edge with the fading firelight. So, turning back to the coal, I immediately saw it again. This time, I did my best to just try to look at it without actually looking at it. After a bit, I turned again and noticed that I could make out a small, somewhat humanoid figure squatting down through the smoke, and only through the smoke. It looked to be maybe a foot tall, squatting down. It had a sharp nose that led into a brow, but I couldn't make out its limbs too well. So this thing sat there, staring into the fire ring, barely regarded me at all. I think that this was a hallucination brought on by stress and tiredness. I decided to tamp down the grass about where it was sitting. It was maybe 6 or 8 feet away. Before going back to the coals again, well, out of the corner of my eye, I saw the thing was no longer looking at the fire, but at me. Needless to say, I apologized out loud and quickly went inside, figuring that the coals are as safe as they needed to be for the evening. Can you imagine being a goblin minding your own business, watching some fire, and some kid with a stick pokes you? And so you look up at the person and they just go, sorry, and then go inside. And your goblin ass is just staring at the fire ring like, well.
God, I just want to enjoy my fire.
Yeah.
I wonder if it was real, though, or if it was just in his imagination.
It could have been imagination. You can see a lot of things in fire, like shapes.
Yeah.
But who knows, you know? The world is a mysterious place.
Hell yeah, it is.
There are lots of things that people can't explain.
We have one more email left. This one's the biggest one.
Mm-hmm.
And I saved that one for you because you're good at reading.
Ah, you might need to read the long one.
Yeah, I'll make you read the long one.
Fine.
Fine.
Okay. So, this email is from Faylorian. Hey there, Space and Bean. Faylorian here. I listened to the update episode and realized, hey, I can send over relevant emails now. So, ta-da, here you go. So, their spooky story says, some of years ago, when I was like 13 or so, myself, my mother, my stepfather, and my little sister, who was 3 at the time, were living in our tiny house cramped in a small sub-district. Now, this little house was pretty simple. There wasn't a lot to say for it. I was an obnoxious little child, weren't we all? And as a result, I was always on the move. We had a large trampoline in our backyard, and thus, that's where I was during this peculiar event. Some more reference, there was a piano in the living room. There was a staircase at the center of the house that led down to the basement, which was split into 2 halves. The laundry room and wine cellar on the right, and the playroom and guest bedroom on the left. Oh, I lost my place.
It's okay. Important later.
There it
Okay,
goes.
back to the story.
Okay, back to the story. I am playing outside on the trampoline when a low buzzing sound steals my attention, so I searched around for said noise. My being My
being
fiance
a
just
not too
came in
bright-
here and started taking her clothes off.
I mean, that's cause
Ooh,
for
your
discussion,
hair's
but
shaved. Let me touch it. Come here. Come here. Ooh, it's fuzzy.
you're talking about her head, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't know she... When did you cut your hair? Did Morgan do it? Damn, it looks good. And she's gone. Anyways.
Natural beauty will take your attention away easily.
I'm sorry, I'm just a hopeless lesbian in love. Anyways, back to the scary story. Me being a not too bright 13-year-old first checked under the trampoline. I finally figured out that the low sound was coming from inside the house. I wander inside and immediately realize that the sound was coming from the living room. I peek around the corner from inside the kitchen and look. Seeing nothing, I slowly head to the opposing room. Looking over at the electric keyboard that we had set up, I see that the sound is emanating from its speakers. The lowest keys had been pressed down, and now the piano was emitting a constant note. For those wondering why it didn't die down, the keyboard didn't have weighted keys, meaning that if you pushed a key, regardless of how hard, the piano would play a sound at the same volume until you released the key. The first thing that struck me as odd was the keyboard was in fact on. Second was the fact that there was now one of my Lego creations holding the key down. Being the naive child I was, I immediately went down the stairs into the basement. Turning the corner into the playroom, I see that my Legos have been disturbed. And, as expected, the creation had been moved from its location. At this point, a sound from the laundry room across the way draws my attention. At first, I just figured it was Vixen, our cranky old cat. But when I heard it twice more, I decided to go and look. Going across the short break in the two areas, I peeked around the door frame. All seemed normal, so I stepped across the barrier and began trying to find the source of the noise. Walking past the rows of various spices and wines, I hear the noise more clearly. It sounded unnatural, to say the least. It was a strange, distorted cross between a muffled laugh and wind whistling through a narrow gap. I reach the end of the room and find nothing out of place. Figuring that it was just the cat, I turn around to leave, and almost trip over another one of my Lego creations that had been left on the floor. Rest in peace, your feet.
Yeah, for real?
At this point, I was understandably on edge. I slowly bend over to pick up the Legos, and then as quietly as I could, looking back, I was probably being louder trying to be sneaky than I would have been normally. I began to leave. Upon reaching the base of the stairs, I see that it's the only way I can think to describe what I say. Sitting there on the floor of the playroom in the middle of a pile of Legos is what appeared to be a small child.
No.
Yeah.
Oh.
Much like myself, only it was unnerving. There was no shape to it. It seemed to twist and distort itself without ever moving. It also was strange, translucent, and ever-changing color. It seemed to be getting rather annoyed as it seemed to struggle to interact with the pieces. Damn, this ghost wants to play with some fucking Legos!
God, yeah.
As
What
I look
happened to this kid?
They got some Lego trauma.
For real.
As I looked upon this strange thing, it looked over and noticed me standing there. It made a noise that wasn't normal, again said to me, "Well, are you just going to stand there?" At this point, I found it inside myself to move, but now I faced a choice. Run away and find my folks, or go and play with this child-esque thing. In the end, I chose the latter and made my way slowly over to the strange, distorted child. I sat down and began building with the Legos, never quite taking my eyes off it. After a while of building, I had managed to cobble together a robot-like creation, while the child struggled to do more than shift a couple of the pieces. At this point, I tried asking it what it was, but it looked up at me, and in that haunting voice answered with a question, "What are you? Why can you make them move so easy?" I was so shocked that I just sat there, and then asked another question. "Why do you get to be so real?" Again, I had no idea how to respond, but even if I had, I would have never gotten the chance. At this point, the shifting figures became more distorted and unrecognizable, and it slowly faded out of sight. I sat there babbling incoherently to myself for the following hour. I never saw the strange, distorted child again, nor did I hear that twisted voice, but I still don't have a clue what it was, or what the answer to its strange and, I don't know the word for it, but heavy-hearted question. That's all from me for this one. Thanks for sitting through the chonky story. I hope you enjoyed it, if that's the right word. Faylorian.
P.S. I know the drawings are crap, but I don't care. It's late, so I'm doing a puzzle.
Yeah, they
There's a,
drew a little map for us of their house, which was pretty dope.
it was scary at first, and I was like really worried. But then it kind of became like one of those real moments where it's like, well, what are you, and why do you get to touch it? And I kind of felt sad and sorry for it.
Yeah, like, oh God.
It could be like, I almost felt like an imaginary friend almost, or maybe it was just like a young spirit that just happened to wander into the room and wanted to see what it was. I'm actually surprised that there are two, like, there's like a rule that you're not supposed to interact with spirits because you can either aggravate them and make it worse. So the fact that he actually went towards it is really surprising, but not shocking at the same time.
Well, if you're a kid, then you don't know any better.
Yeah.
They tell you to stop, drop, and roll as if you're going to be caught on fire in elementary school, but they don't tell you how to talk to a ghost. Public school sucks.
I mean, okay, so I didn't fully read this email, like I didn't proof it, but I do have a little story that kind of goes along with this, and it was the one that I was going to say, like, oh, I'll talk about it later. There was a time so the same time that, like, I'd say like a year or two later after that moon rock thing.
The moon salt?
Yeah, the moon salt, not moon rocks. Shoot, I want a moon rock.
Is salt just edible rocks?
Yeah. I mean, there's rock salt. Have you ever had rock salt?
Yeah, we have a lot of rock salt lamps.
Yeah, okay, no. I mean, like, you've ever gotten rock salt in, like, package that you would make, like, ice cream with. Okay, look at that kind of stuff. That's the stuff that I use on the windowsills. So around that time, my sister and her husband and her son move into the house. I move out, and then I move back in about a year later, and they leave. Like, my mom said, like, one day they were here, and then the next day they were gone. It was really weird. No. So I move out, they move in, and then I move back in next to my nephew's room, and I just remember coming home one day and they were gone. So it was just kind of weird. Yeah, it was really weird. My mom doesn't even know what happened. Probably some drama, who knows. But I always noticed that, like, when I was there, my nephew in the middle of the night would be talking to someone. I don't know who he was talking to, but he'd be talking to someone. And I asked my sister, and I'm like, does Brian have, like, a friend or like imaginary ghost? She's like, no. Like, because I can hear him talking at night, and they're like full-on conversations. She's like, he's probably just talking in his sleep, or maybe it's just something that he made up. And I'm like, I don't know. I mean, some of these are kind of interesting conversations. And she's like, don't worry about it. I'm like, okay. So I noticed that he would talk. So I always thought it was weird. So they up and left. And so I remember walking past the room one day, and I just kind of felt like there was something in there. And I go in there and I'm like, hey, there's nothing in here, whatever. And then I leave and I close the door. And later that day, I felt like something was in my room now watching me, but I couldn't figure out what it was. And so I kind of just like let it go, whatever, because it didn't really bother me until like one day that I just felt like something was staring at me and it was bothering me and I couldn't sleep. So that evening I'm like, okay, I have an option. I can reach out and say something, or I can, like, I guess reach out to my Wiccan friends and see what they say, which I did. I reached out and they're like, don't talk to it because it'll aggravate it. And, let us think of something and then we'll call you back. And I'm like, okay. But I'm like, well, whatever. What's the worst that could happen? So I basically kind of like went into the room and I kind of just sat there and I'm like, okay, what am I going to do? And I'm like, well, I'm going to go to the movies with a friend. So I'll just ask it to make itself known. I mean, that seems fairly, simple, and there's nothing's going to come of it because I really think ghosts were that big of a deal. So I'm like, okay. I kind of just say out loud, I'm like, I know that you're in here, and I know that you want something, but I'm not really sure what it is. So if you can, make yourself known, but you are not allowed to touch me. You cannot harm me in any sort of way. I just need to know what you are so I know what to do next. So I leave and I go, to the movies and stuff, and I come back and do my nightly routine, and then I go to sleep. And I remember having like this dream about like I was skiing, and all of a sudden it just like flashed, and I could see my room. And I could see my room very clearly while I was sleeping. And I see these pair of eyes just kind of slowly like go from fade to like realistic. And then like a little figure kind of started to make its way. And I realized it's a kid. And the kid walks up to the side of my bed and he's like, I miss my friend and I'm here and I don't know what to do. And I'm sorry. And then it just goes away. And I wake up immediately and I'm like, oh my God, it's his imaginary friend. And I never saw him ever since then. Like he just disappeared.
Oh, that's kind of sad.
It was really sad. I'm like, oh my God. So I wonder if, what happened is they left so soon, so quickly that he got left behind. So I don't know if Brian had another...
Like he had a spirit attached to him or something.
Yeah, or something. So like he was just sitting there and I don't know, I didn't do anything. I just let him say his thing and then he was just gone after that. Yeah. And I told my friends, and I'm like, he was just gone. He's like, hey, next time, don't talk to it. I'm like, I'm sorry. I just wanted to know what would happen. So
yeah, next time, maybe don't talk to the dead.
But it's weird though. So like, I wouldn't say it was a ghost. I want to say it was just like a being. So it was a kid, but I don't know where the kid came from. I don't know if it was a ghost or anything. It was just kind of like maybe imaginary friends are real when you're a kid and then they just kind of dissipate when you get older. I don't know.
Think about.
Yeah. But I mean, that happened. So I always think that like spooky things happen all the time. So it is what it is. If you have a spooky story, email us at talktothemuzzle@gmail.com. Do you have anything else?
Oh, I can't think of anything else.
No? Well, I hope you guys enjoy that. That'll be our Halloween show. Though I don't know why I'm saying that now, because you'd be listening to it at this point. So I'll just edit that out. Pickle. I hope you guys have a great Halloween.
Happy Halloween, everybody. Stay safe.
Yeah, stay safe, and we'll see you guys on our next episode. Have a good one.
Bye, guys.